Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times bestselling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, listeners. It's another great day on the Townsend Institute podcast series. Dr. Townsend is back in the house to offer his tips and guidance surrounding a topic near and dear to our hearts and personal lives: parenting.
That's right, Gilbert. John and Barbie have successfully launched their two sons into the real world. So their experiences, paired with decades of research on the neuroscience and development of the human brain, relationships, and emotions, make John an excellent guest to speak on this topic. So whether your little ones are still in diapers or recently flew the coop, making you an empty nester, settle in because there is something for everyone on today's episode.
That is for sure. And if you want to hear more and learn more from Dr. Townsend, join us at our next information session on Wednesday, October 15th. Hear from John, an Institute alum, and meet with our esteemed faculty and program directors to find out more about our degrees and certificates at the Townsend Institute. Let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Tips episode. I'm alongside my co-host Gilbert, and Dr. Townsend's in the house today. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Everybody.
Hello.
We are excited for this topic of conversation. So many of our listeners out here, and of course, students in our programs, alumni of our university, have heard Dr. Townsend talk on a number of topics. This one, though, is a little unique, one that we don't hear him talk about in some of our town halls and conferences as much as some of the others. So we're excited to jump right into it, and we're going to be talking about parenting today. And so, John, go ahead and get us started. We know that you're an author, you're a psychologist, but talk a little bit about how you got drawn into teaching parenting.
Well, first off, Henry Cloud and I wrote 2 books on it. And actually, there's 3 out there. There's Boundaries with Kids, Boundaries with Teens, and there's also Raising Great Kids. And a lot of the way that we were always interested in that topic, because if you have an adult that you want to be a really kind of normal adult that you would like to be around and work with and, have coffee with, it starts with the childhood. The child determines, how normal or not normal the adult is. And so we knew that developmentally, the way the science goes and the way the Bible teaches it, the sooner you can get to anything, whether it's a recipe for, a meal or building a business, the earlier you get to putting your hands in the dough and everything, the better life's going to be. So it was very important to us. In particular, some of the books were written to solve problems, like people just with an out of control kid or with an out of control teen and didn't know what to do about it, and they loved them and they cared, but nothing was happening. Well, even Boundaries is loving boundaries that are very direct and targeted with a solution. So we were trying to solve that problem. People just kept writing on us to us and asking us questions in the seminars and the radio program. And then the book Raising Great Kids, which is an overall developmental look at parenting, all through all the stages that we here work at with the Institute: attachment, separation, integration, and adulthood. That came because there were some Christian authors out there, good people, but they had a very kind of skewed view on what it takes to raise a kid. And it actually was kind of legalistic. And so they asked us a group called Mothers of Preschooler Children, MOPS, which Barbie, she went through it when our kids are small, loved it. We love them. They asked us to write a book and say, can you give us a balanced, research-based biblical book on parenting? So it came just because not only were we interested just knowing developmental training, but also people just saying, what do we do? So kind of trying to solve problems.
Yeah. And I love it because you and Barbie, you've raised two great boys, right? I mean, so if adults now, I mean, if they were a little odd, we probably wouldn't ask you this question, but I mean, so you we have a great, body
Okay,
of work
I'll
to go.
call my sons and say, "Wow, I had to ask a question because you're not odd enough, guys. Could you
You're
get
not
odder
odd, right?
so we can?"
Well, sometimes you meet people and you go, well, they might have written a book, but I don't know. The proof's not in the pudding there. So yeah, every
No, they're
once in a
great
while.
guys. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
we're very
Well,
proud of them.
so how does the Bible, though, John, support the idea of setting boundaries in parenting, and why is that important for Christian families? How does the Bible support that?
Well, whenever you look at a what you would call a demographic book or a targeted book, a lot of people say find a verse on this, and you know the dating book, the marriage book, the parenting book, and people always say, well, there's not enough in there. How about the setting boundaries with left-handed people who live in Zanzibar? There's not enough Bible. Well, that's not the way you look at this.
Yeah.
Because and here's what people kind of like the lights come on, Gilbert, is you say every book about every principle about relationships pretty much in the Bible applies to all relationships.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah.
So, what is it that takes this person who's unformed cookie dough and makes them into a great adult? It's the same principles that the Bible says. No matter what you are, if it's a parent thing or building a business or whatever, and the overall view is it's always going to be the three elements that we talk about all the time in the institute. The foundational elements. There's got to be certain amounts of grace, and we know that grace means God is for us, and certain amounts of truth, which is feedback, consequences, reality, all that sort of thing, and then a certain amount of time. If you
Mm,
go to John chapter 1:14, it says the Apostle John, the writer John, says that Jesus came full of grace and truth, the two essential elements. And that has to be metabolized and worked through over a process of time. So, number one, it's all over the Bible because the Bible is about relationship. The second reason we have to understand is that there's also great passages specifically on parenting.
mm,
For example, when you go to Ephesians, Colossians, which are highly relational books, it talks about, don't discourage your child. It says you've got to, however you treat them, it's got to be loving because sometimes having limits and consequences is painful. And then there's, on the other side, that was the grace part, but then there's the truth part. Look at Proverbs 29 about how discipline's a positive thing. So it's all over the Bible.
mm.
And those ingredients are there generally to just humans, but also particularly to parenting.
That's really
Long
great,
answer
John.
to a short question, but an important question to start this conversation, Gilbert.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Love it.
Absolutely. No, this is great. And just the biblical foundation, like you said, that's the Bible, right? It's a book of law and gospel. So the grace and truth and
You
everything
got it.
strewn in between. So
And
we'll talk.
isn't it exciting? Not to interrupt you, but I just
Go
got so
ahead.
excited when you said that,
Yeah.
Ashley,
Yeah.
that my favorite topic, which is neuroscience, actually says this stuff's all true.
Yes.
The neuroscience will show us about the structure of the brain, that the brain needs love and compassion and
Mm.
understanding and presence, but the brain also needs structure and challenge. So sort of
Yes.
like now the hard science is finally saying God knew what he was doing. Whoopie doo. And I'm thankful for neuroscience for helping us that, and especially this
Wow.
parenting topic.
Let's go back to that idea on boundaries. Obviously, your best-selling book that's out there on this idea of boundaries. But what are some of the biggest misconceptions that parents have about this idea of setting boundaries with their children? We know it's important, but I think there are a lot of parents who are weary to go there, right? Because again, they don't want to be too legalistic. What do you have to say about that?
They say they're more hesitant to go there.
Mm,
To
Mm.
me, it's more of an anxiety issue. Like, is this the right thing? Because I don't want to put out a child who, would not be able to live life. And I see a lot of hesitant parents. And you can categorize those two, mm, and you can categorize the mistakes or the approaches that aren't helpful, basically in two camps. One is lots of grace and not enough truth in
Mhm.
the form of reasonable consequences and following through. And the other is lots of truth and not enough grace, where you really, the child can feel discouraged, disheartened, sometimes abused. That's where the imbalances come from. Because a lot of people see this as kind of a zero-sum game, guys.
Mhm.
It's like, well, I tried grace and I was loving with my child, but they're still screaming in the office, and or in the shopping center. So I'll just be truth now. I'll limit my grace and do a lot of truth. Well, that's not going to work. Or they say, this child came from a very, very, strict family, so I'm just going to be Disney with them and reduce the truth. It's never like that. God's not like that. He never has a zero-sum game of grace and truth. It's always lots of the one and lots of the other, and we'll go into the particulars on that, but that is really the solution.
And it takes time, right? I mean, the time to be with the kids and so critical. So
Not only does it take time, it takes different kinds of time,
Mhm.
because what works for a 2-year-old is not going to work for a 13-year-old. So as you go through the stages of development until they're, 18, 20, it's a different kind of menu over time too. You have to keep that into consideration.
I think that's a hang up for sometimes for parents, right? When is it changing, right? I mean, from like
Yep.
a toddler and then elementary and then and then high school. Oh, they do. Oh, they don't want us. Oh, maybe they do. Yeah.
They don't want to hang around us. They want to be with their friends. Oh, they're abandoning us. No, they're doing what God developed them to do, was to make friends. But when people ask that question, it's in the book Raising Great Kids, that what the stages are, so you can kind of understand it. But it really comes down to two stages, I think, in the kind of meta level. There's the parenting years, and then there's the deparenting years.
Ooh, I like that.
A lot of
Yeah.
parents
Unpack
hate
that
that.
for
When I
us.
say that, they get sad and all this. But you got to look at it this way: is from say 1 to 11-ish, you're putting in, structure, and you're teaching and you're coaching. You guys are both great coaches to your kids. And, you're also giving them all the support they need and the love, and you're being attached to them. But around 11-ish, it's got to move toward, am I resourcing them? Because they're going to be leaving and finding their own passion, their own ways of relating with God and jobs and marriage and all that. And so the parents that don't think about the deep parenting are always kind of hovering and
Mhm.
anxious. And I'll talk to a kid who's 17 and a half and say, yeah, she still wants to like come in and, make sure that I've made my bed. It's kind of old for that. So that's, if you missed anything, in those years, just remember there's that kind of fulcrum. And at one page is sort of like, I've done a lot of work here. Their brains are really good brains. Now it's time to get them ready for life.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Well, yeah, my oldest daughter the other day came home. One of her friends' dads or parents said, "Wow, at 14, 15, you've already lived 75% of the time that you're going to live with like your siblings and parents, probably because
Yep.
18. I mean, you're almost there as far as to the 18 mark and stuff. So that's true. So okay,
That's a really good illustration, because that's why I have to tell parents. I always get bad news to parents, but then after they think about it, they say, okay, thank you, it's going to help. But sometimes
yeah,
I'm the bad news bear. But this is one of them: is a good parent works themselves out of a job.
mm, true.
If you decide you're going to be discipling your child until they're 50 and you're 80, there's a problem. Read your Bible, leaving and cleaving, Genesis 2. And so you're always thinking, I'm providing a social network. How can I provide them with the tools to get a social network without me? I'm providing them with understanding about money. How can I help them to do that without me? Relationships, career, behavior, controlling behavior, learning when to feel and not feel, all those things. We got to work ourselves at a job. And so the good parents say, oh, yeah, they're out and about now, and I'm retired from that. I'm doing other things. I'll always be a historical, loving figure. I want to be current with them. Maybe they'll use me as a mentor, but retirement's the way to go. And some parents go, "Ooh, we'll do something else." And some go, I know, that's why I exist. No, you don't exist to only be a parent.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
exist to be a parent for a period of time. And then the sign that you did a great job is that they're functioning well emotionally, functioning well relationally,
Mm,
functioning well in career and money and spiritually. When
yeah.
they're functioning without you, but you're sort of on the sidelines helping when you can, you are the winner. Everybody wins.
Wow,
I love
that's
that.
awesome. I like that. Work yourself out of a job. Right.
that
And
beautiful?
that's got to be real hard. And I think it's also a testament to kind of the visualization that it's a transition and a growth process for both the child and the parent. Right. And so you're kind of growing alongside your child into these different
You are.
phases.
And when I
So,
see some parent would talk, I say, "What do you do?" They say, "Well, I'm a mom." I'll go, "Right. What else?" What?
ah,
Mm.
I said, "Well, maybe because they're 4, 5, and 6. That's all you got time for."
right,
But
right.
think about when they get more autonomous and get driver's license and all that. What else are you?
Hmm. When we talk about different parenting philosophies, there are obviously so many out there, right? Probably more today than there has been in
Yeah.
decades. I don't know. You hear this idea about gentle parenting, you hear the
Mhm.
metaphors for those helicopter parents or the tiger moms or this, that, or the other. What are some of your takes on just these different philosophies or ways of looking at parenting?
Well, let me beat the drum again. Analyze them through the lens of grace, truth, and time. I'll give you an example now. Gentle parenting is really popular these days, and I understand why people are attracted to it because there's some really good things that gentle parenting does. You help the child feel compassion. You help the child be compassionate. It's highly relational. It's very positive. Has lots of creativity. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong. That's their strong suit. And I'm not an expert on it, but I do my reading. But the other side of that is, okay, where's the consequences for bad behavior? Like the fact that when someone needs a timeout is good for them. What if they hate the timeout? Well, maybe the timeout means, maybe their hatred of the timeout means they're going to remember it in their brain the next time they bump their little sister on the head and they think, I was in timeout for a while. I didn't like that. I couldn't play. And then I guess what I'll do, I'll manage my behavior the next time I'm around her and she frustrates me. That's not because of empathy, it's because I don't like timeouts. But that develops over time into empathy. So groups that are all grace and no truth tend to be great on the relational connection side, but the kids have a hard time with structure, with being able to live in the real world where there are people, people say it's like the old saying, I want to be free. And somebody says, yeah, try yelling fire in a crowded theater and see how your
Oh,
freedom
yeah.
works for you.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to train our children to to do everything they feel like doing. We want to say, you're going to be loved and loved deeply and understood and known and attached to. But there's also a responsibility aspect in life, and compassion alone does not do it. The Beatles are wrong. I'm a Beatles fan, but when they said love is all you need, it's not in the research and it's not in the Bible.
We might, well, now we see when the bandits play, you can have a new song, right? Love is not all you need. You got to have a
Now,
little more.
now, now, Gary, if you're going to do that, a lot of people right now are scratching their heads and says, Dr. Fugit said the word bandits. Is he into stagecoach robberies? What's he talking about? You got to clarify this. Give
Oh,
context here.
Doc John. So if you don't know, listeners, Dr. Townsend and
They
his
don't.
sons, well, they might. I mean, so that's the
They
sort of
might.
thing,
I don't
right?
know.
Your sons, like a family thing, they have a band, they go out and play. And so
Yeah, and
you know,
their father, who's retired from parenting, loves to spend time with them because that's how we bond with each other as adults.
as adults, I love it. Well, yeah, all grace, so yeah, you got to have it in moderation. You don't want all grace, you don't want all truth all the
Can
time.
we go to the other side of that one? Because I
Yeah,
didn't really
let's do
hit that.
that.
And that's
Yeah.
very important. Um, then there are the parents, maybe the tigerish parents or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them, or the uber strict, whatever. And goodness gracious, what happens a lot of times with them is that a lot of times it'll work kind of okay. You'll get this over compliant kid who sometimes they're way too quiet and they're kind of
Mm.
afraid of breaking rules. And then in that period I mentioned, the deep parenting, one thing, or another will happen. One is that they'll kind of go crazy. Like
Yeah.
I was built, my brain, my endorphins, my prefrontal cortex says you need some freedom here. And they'll rebel, and you get these horrible things happening because they never had any choices or any way to rebel in happy ways, or even to protest the limits. It was all they were in a prison and they're afraid to lose it. So then they get those years where it's just coming down with them and their friends are doing this, and they way overreact. Instead of having a normal junior high time, it's a bad one. Then the others go all the way through, perfect kid, Well, Barbie and I always had a hard time with the parents whose kids never struggled. We'd have dinner with them. At those ages,
Yes.
the age of your kids are, part of the dinner is like, oh, my kid's out of control. And we have these Christian parents that are good friends of ours that would say, you guys have problems with your children? Obviously, obviously you're not reading your Bible enough and praying enough. And we pray a lot, you know. And and then what would happen, and I'm not being mean about this. I'm not,
No.
I promise. It's compassionate. Sometime in college, they call us and say, what happened to, Peter Perfect,
Mhm.
all of
Yeah.
a sudden they're going crazy. Why? Because they never had that parent to monitoring grace and truth in that developmental stage of adolescence to say, you're going to make your mistakes with us. It's okay to make mistakes. There will be consequences, but we love you. They didn't have a chance to metabolize grace and truth, and now they did it when they're 1,000 miles away. So that's what happens. Either the person, and the third option of the all truth and no grace between the compliant child and the uber rebellious child is and sadly enough, it comes out like in their marriage when they're 30.
Oh,
And
yeah.
all of a sudden they, get angry or allow bad things to happen. So you just want to make sure grace and truth and those stages are faced, and you want to be sure you're the parents that manage those things with grace and truth at each state in appropriate amounts and dosages and frequency. And that's where the boundaries come in. But it's also where are we having one-on-one time? One
Yeah.
thing we did. Um, we had boys, Barbie and I had boys, and boys aren't as verbal as gals, lots of reasons. We're probably not as smart as y'all either, actually. So, well, actually, going,
Yeah.
yeah, well, tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
But we knew, because our friends that had girls, when they come home from school in the early ages, how was your day? And I did this, and then she talked to me, and she didn't, and I want to be a cheerleader, I want to be a scientist, and then and you couldn't stop them. Our kids, boys, we'd say, how would your day? And Barbie be home, and they'd say, good. They go to their room or go out and play baseball or whatever. Good. That's the whole
Good.
day.
Yeah.
So we said, this is a problem. You got to talk. You got to process emotion. You got to process wins and loses. So we came up with an idea that before dinner, you've got to walk. Each one of you has to walk around the block with dad, and
Mm.
one at a time. And you must talk to me, or I wasn't going to starve them, but I'd say you won't be having a great dinner.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
must talk to me. And so each boy would do it. We'd walk around the block, and the first half of the block would be, "This sucks. This is so lame. I wish I was playing with my friends." I go,
Oh,
"I
yeah.
know
Yeah.
it's not fun," because boys kind of have to have something to do to look at.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Women, girls, they love that eye contact with the boys. They got to look at the squirrels or the cars, or whatever. And the first half of the block, then we go, "This is awful." Second half of the block, a miracle happened every time.
Hmm.
And then one of them would go, I don't think I'm going to make it in the team. I don't think the coach is going to pick me. Or I feel so bad because I'm not good at science. And, I don't think I feel bad. Or oh, there's this girl of what, I mean, she's kind of cute or whatever.
Yeah.
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 And I would get to the end, back to the block, to the car, to the house. And so many times one of the boys would say, can we go around again?
Mm.
Because they needed the attachment. They needed the presence, what we would call relational nutrients of presence and comfort and being emotionally there and validating their experience and all that. They needed that. And they were in that mode and they come back again. So never forget, it's not just the rules. You got to have the rules in the
Yeah.
home, appropriate discipline, consequence, and all that. You've got to have the attachment. And if I've got to choose between the one or the two, always go for attachment.
Always go for attachment. I love that. You know what? I've heard that a number of times, more when I was with the EDD program, and we were talking a lot about school counseling with boys, especially. They talked about how they have to be active. They need to have
Hmm.
something going on in their circle. And so one of our professors said she was in the choir at church, and so she would always have to stuff the music for Sundays into the different folders, and that became her job with her sons is they would help stuff the music. And while they were just doing this menial task of stuffing music in the choir folders, she said they would just open up. They would just start to
Oh, yeah.
talk because it
Yep.
was like, and so, it's
Well,
not why they're doing
because
their homework.
the intensity of looking at somebody in the eyes and being vulnerable is just harder for boys. But then I like that stuffing thing because over time, it's sort of like a little crush that you need.
Yeah.
But if it works, then over time they go, I can do it without that. And then they can actually relate eyeball to eyeball vulnerably. But it's a good kind of beginning little tactic. You get them started.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
But
you
just
don't want
pick it up.
somebody 35 having to look stuff on.
No, 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 no.
That's right.
These were with her kids or things like that. But because she was a school counselor, and so that worked with her son. So when she would meet with students, she would have
Yep.
them come in their office, and she would say, "Hey, I need some help with this." And sometimes
Yeah.
it'd be putting books on a bookshelf or
Sure.
doing something else, and just finding. So you got to find. You don't want it to be
Yeah.
homework, because homework, like, we
No.
really do need to be focused on what they're doing,
Right.
kind of thing. But like those
Kind of
little
mindless
tasks,
stuff.
mindless stuff. So I like that. Yeah, it always stuck with me. And I think it's good too, just recognizing the needs and the desires of different children, right? And that, again, that idea that what works for one isn't going to work for the other,
Is
right?
not.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know that, and Gilbert, you do too. You've got, two daughters, well, and a son, but raised in the same home with the same
Yep.
parents, with, very similar upbringings, but they might attach, or they have just different,
It's
different.
not one size fits all.
Not at
And if
all.
you're
No.
rigid and kind of manual based, it's not going to go well. But if
Oh,
you
yeah.
can listen and be agile, like you're talking about, Ashley, you're going to
Yeah.
win.
You're right. We get in, pick them up at my middle daughter. She doesn't hardly take a breath. She just da 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 da. We hear everything, every detail that occurred. My son, okay. I have to say, time out. Cole, it's your turn. Well, we played soccer today. Okay, and so then we have to really. I'm going to try
Then you
this.
kind of
Walk around
draw it
the.
out, right?
You got to draw it out, because I know
Yeah.
it was more than just soccer or basketball or whatever they played and stuff.
So you get
But
outside and you
you're
play
drawing out.
soccer.
You're doing a favor for his future wife, because now that you're drawing him out, now when she's 30 and he's 30, and she goes, you don't want her going to a marriage therapist saying he stonewalls me all the time. I don't feel close to him. You're
Yeah.
already bringing out something, and I hope that one day his future wife will say, "Hey guys, Gilbert and Christine, thank you."
Yeah. Yeah. Hope so too.
Which is
Wow.
the whole point.
Yeah.
One thing that so important, and this is also in the Raising Great Kids book. Gotta realize this is not about now. All those tantrums and acting out and the craziness, don't get stuck in the now. This is about the future, because there's going to be one day you don't have any input. And so when they're going nuts, like the tired parent who says, I'm just so tired of disciplining, and then they get squirrely, and I'm always, think about this. If I just let go, and everybody gets tired, and I just say, forget it, I'm just gonna let them go crazy and have a good time and all this. Think about the future you just created for their spouse, for their own children, for their career. So put the time in now. And if you're weary, go to a healthy church, go to a healthy small group, get healthy friends, go to a healthy shrink, and strengthen yourself, because it's not about now. You got to play the long game. It's about then.
So speaking of the long game, as we think about from toddlers all the way up, to teenagers, what do you think some healthy boundary shifts that parents should be aware of?
You mean a boundary being a response to their behavior?
Yeah. 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 How does it shift as they grow?
Well, let's start with the universals. You've always got to make your bed. You shouldn't change it. And so from young, there should be boundaries and just house rules. And
Okay.
if somebody's 4, they can probably set the table, and somebody can feed the dog and clean up its poop, and
Yep.
reasonably make up their room and behave themselves and that sort of thing. So those are the requirements. And then as they get older, it's different. But in terms of, I'm going to answer your question in terms of what the boundaries themselves are, which is the set of rules and consequences. You find that the youngins, toddlers and that sort of age, they don't understand what the word no is. And so you have to train them that knows that, yes is a great word, but so is no. And so you have to say no, and then they won't understand it, or they will understand and blow it off. And that's when you have to set an age appropriate consequence. In the young ones, sometimes just a timeout is a big deal, because they want to be on the action, taking away a toy and this sort of thing. The big principle here, 2 principles here. One is a boundary for a child is the one, appropriate boundary for a child is the one that takes away something they love and want, or adding something they don't want. So you
Mm.
take away the toy and then you add maybe, I don't know, maybe you got to clean up, set the table more than you should, maybe twice that week or 5 times that week. Add something that feels noxious. It's not bad for them, but it's noxious. They don't like it, or take away what they love. Now you go into the later years, teenage. Well, gosh, the double-edged sword of the social media is you've got leverage now.
Mm.
What's the one thing you take away from a teenager that they will do anything to claw back?
Oh, it's their phone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Phone, iPad, the tablets, computers, laptops. They're social beings. And I love the social part. I don't like the what happens, the bad stuff happens. But you take that away and you get their attention. And so, or you add, well, you're cleaning up the dog's poop and your sister and brother don't have to for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Now, when they get serious, I mean, so many, and you guys are parents, you know, you have friends that have the really serious problems, you know, where there's acting out sexually or with drugs or alcohol, violence, those sorts of things. Then they have to be more than just taking away social media. It's got to
Mhm.
be more like, we'll have to restrict you. Sometimes we'll have to take away your privileges for freedom and this sort of thing, take away licenses. And then there's the times, unfortunately, that the boundary is we don't have enough structure for you. You're just a danger to yourself and to others. So we're going to have to get you help and a counselor or a setting. I mean, I've had kids that friends' kids have to go to, some retreat for a year in Wyoming and
Mm.
came back a new person. You don't want that, but sometimes the house itself is not enough of a boundary. So there's a whole gamut depending on
Yeah.
the age of the child and the severity of the issue.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep, that's very good. No, lots of things to consider. Well, when we talk about being parents, can you talk about ways in which we as parents can help model some of these ideas that you've been talking about here today, whether it's the idea of boundaries or, things like that? And how can we do that maybe in our own relationships, whether it's the marital one or parents with their own families or their own friends?
Mhm.
Any recommendations for us parents?
Yeah, actually, there's several of those that I think can be very helpful. One is to realize you're always being watched. Don't
Mm.
think, oh, I'll do this on the side and do kind of a sarcastic remark to my spouse because I'm mad at it, but I don't want to say it in front of the kids. Your kids are smart. You're always being watched. Get used to being scrutinized. And if you have some tough things to say, you guys go in the bedroom, put the kids either doing homework or watching TV. Be the adult. You see, sometimes parents think, I'll just be like my kids. I'll be their best friend and I'll just be fun and impulsive and all that. And that messes up everything because God made us to aspire to be a thing called a grown
Yeah.
up. How can you aspire if your parents look like you, dress like you, talk like you? There's nothing to aspire to. And so they don't challenge themselves to grow. So be a grown up. I believe in the generation gap. I think it's a great thing. And if there's not one, some parent needs to go, I got to grow up. So that's the first thing is realize they're always observing.
Mm.
Second thing is to think, how is what I'm getting ready to do to my child going to affect them? And it just goes back to Jesus' words. He said, treat others as you'd like to be treated. Love others as you like to be loved. So
Mhm.
if I'm really mad and I'm so frustrated with my child, I mean, I think with an older child, it's okay to say I'm frustrated and angry right now, but we'll work it out and in some direct but warm way. But the little ones, you shouldn't do that. You got to be more of a grown up. You take the mad somewhere else. You take a time out yourself, or go talk to
Yeah.
somebody, pray, take a walk. Shoot baskets. But don't
We
let
we
them
have a
sit.
calming corner at our house.
A
Ooh.
calming quarter.
A calming corner, and let me tell you, I've gone to the calming corner a couple times.
Absolutely. God bless you. Because then the regressed Ashley mom is
Uh-huh.
not the one facing the kid, and the kid goes, I've got this psycho who's raising me. What about now? But when you come back, you say, okay, you're still in timeout, but I love you, and there'll be cookies later if you change your behavior. Oh, she's the grace and truth mom. I can relate to her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure that you bring your more regressed parts or when you just want to like give in to them because you care about them and you do what we would call fragilize them.
Yep.
And it's all your teacher's fault and it's all your friend's fault. And what do they do to provoke you to hit that guy in the eye? And then you've got to come pull out of that and get maybe with your spouse or your friend and say, I just feel like just protecting them from the world. And they go, I know, I feel it too, but that's not preparing them. You got to find out what their part was. So make sure you've got either places like Ashley's
Yes.
talking about, or people to say, I think I'm out of balance. And that will
Mm.
help a lot.
There's a lot going on right now, I think even more than ever, right, for raising teens and the culture and the clash that's going on for certainly for Christian values. How can the boundaries protect both a child's heart and their faith as they're developing?
My number one, when people ask me that question, Gilbert, my number one is make sure your church has a healthy youth group.
Mm.
Mm.
I've had people change churches, a church they loved, got great teaching, great, worship, great fellowship, but changed their church for one they didn't like as much because they had a great youth group. And they did it for several years. And they'll tell me, best decision I ever made.
Mm.
Because now you've got kind of like a place with your own values who are not over rigid and not
Mhm.
over unstructured either. And they're in the groups where the kids are, they're fun kids, but it's also there's good ways to teach the Bible and what being a Christian is about. And they are doing the message that you're trying to do at home, and the kids get in a tag team in a really aligned way. That'd be
Mhm.
number one.
And I think about that because you have other adults, not you, who are talking about faith, who are talking about how
Yep.
it plays out, and your kid may bring something up to them or to someone else,
Mhm.
Right.
and that's just another person speaking into their life. That's a
Yeah.
great point.
And on a smaller level, that's what Barbana did about our community. We're in a community in Orange County, California, where things can get crazy
Yeah.
because of all the excess there can be. And so we committed to two or three other families that had similar values,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And a lot of grace, a lot of truth, this sort of thing, faith. And we had dinners with them and cried with them and talked about what are your strategies. We're all aligned, and the kids would say, "Our friends, your friends aren't as cool as we want." And I go, "Yeah, get used to it. They're not as cool as you want. We're not the ones that go and party down all the time until 3 a.m. No, we're not
Yeah.
doing that. So you're going to have earlier curfews than a lot of friends, but hang around these folks." And then they started really attaching to the other kids who
Mhm.
weren't weird. They weren't like Poindexters or anything, and all of a sudden, it was like they were used to it. They internalized it. That's the word.
Yeah.
And it was okay. So get those friends that are not crazy and understand attachment, but also believe in a good structure. And they
That's
become your
really
group.
great. I love that, Don. And, again, we've talked about how your two boys, they've launched, they're now grown and out of the house and doing their own thing. But looking back on it, maybe you've had conversation with Barbie over the years. Is there anything you would have done differently
Ooh.
in your parenting journey, whether it was from those early baby toddler days or up through the teenage years?
I think if I had to do over again, I'd have probably been, I'd probably add a more percentage of more grace and less the rule guy.
Okay.
Barbie's on the
Ah.
other side of it, and we work well together.
Yeah.
But I think I should have been more that way. I mean, and the kids will say, we love having the dad and we love having in our lives, and yeah, we're very close. But when I'll ask them, they'll say, "Yeah, you both did a great job, but you could have had added a dollop of grace with the rules sometimes."
Mhm.
I think they're right. I think I was just anxious, so I probably got somewhat too rigid, and then Barbie really helped me with that. So as time went on, I got better and better at that.
You're a good team, it sounds like. You kind of balanced each other out on some
I
of that.
think so.
Yeah.
But here's the
Excellent.
thing. Remember this, parents. Don't ever get the idea where you can polarize these and blow off the responsibility, where one says, well, this one's the rigid one, so I'll be all the fun one to compensate. That
Yeah.
creates a borderline situation where the kid doesn't know right from wrong, up from
Right.
down. Don't be the one that says, oh, well, since you're way too fun, I'll be the tough one. You're both supposed to have grace and truth. Now, there's never 50-50 on the dial. So you maybe say, I'm really good at fun and attachment. I'm not so good at the structure. You go to your spouse humbly and say, help me with that, because I want to have
Mhm.
Yeah.
both. I'll never have your specialty, but I can really use your help to be that more that way. And you that are too rigid sometimes and don't connect emotionally enough, don't say, well, that's her job or his job. Used to go to the other one and say, I got to be warmer. Help me to know how to get on the carpet and play. But never polarize and say, you've got two different lanes. That's not the way we raise kids. It's really one lane.
John, as you know, this has been, I think I've been taking notes. This is good stuff here. So that I'm going to use with them, but we end all.
Or he's just going to send your kids to your house, John. So if you get a knock on the door here pretty soon,
it's true.
It's mine and Gilbert's kids showing up for Camp John and Barbie.
Okay. Well, that'd be a great idea, because I like to have children's process groups about talking about their parents' dysfunctionality and learning how to forgive their parents. This would be a great time. Send them over.
Oh yeah, you'll have a lot of
We'll bring
material.
the cookies.
That's right.
Well, but I might get a couple of books at it. So I think it's a win-win.
That's true. Really. Yeah, you think about it, it's a win-win. So we, of course, always want to end with a takeaway tip for all our listeners. What's the tip that you would like everyone to walk away with today?
It's a great question, Gilbert. I think a really, really helpful tip would be, don't do this alone. It really does take a village.
Mm-hmm.
And the specific tip would be, do some research about somebody in your sphere, a neighbor, somebody at church, somebody you work with, who knows, who you've seen is doing a great job in parenting. And you can see the fruit, that the kids have personalities and they're full of life, but they know what the rules are and all that. And go to them and say, it's a tough tip, but I think it's a good tip. Go to them and say, I need a report card. We see each other and you can't hurt our feelings. Or if you hurt our feelings, it's our problem. And just tell us, where are we off balance? Are we for one, do we warn and warn and warn and warn and threaten and never follow up? That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we give the consequences like impulsively without giving any warning? Or do we not connect enough? Or are we perfectionistic? Or do we have no requirements and no standards? And just say, look, our kids are at stake and we love you. We've seen that you're great kids. What can you give us in a little report card? Be nice to us, but be direct with us. And if the person you say they are, if they've got the faith aspect and the experience aspect, they understand the science a bit, then write down what they say and follow it. And it might be a fine-tuning thing, like, well, try this as a small thing. Or it might be, goodness gracious, you've got to overhaul your engine in your head. It's not just fine-tuning. But that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
It'll get you out of your own perspective, because we don't know. We're in our own home. We don't know if we're balanced or not. Get somebody outside who's done it right.
I love that. I think that's great. I think this is an awesome time to go back and pitch, obviously, raising great kids. You talked about several times here in this episode that you co-authored with Henry Cloud, which is a great resource. And also many of our fellows and past podcast guests that we've had on here who have come in and talked about this. Obviously, Dr. Amen talked about raising, mentally strong kids. A while back, we interviewed Ron Deal, who talked a lot about the step family and blended family dynamics. And so definitely encourage those to utilize the resources, both here within our institute and outside of it.
The resources are there.
They are.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much, John. We appreciate it so much coming in and talking to us today. So thanks for everything.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you.
If you enjoyed the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.